So, um, if you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this very clean, jagged white line, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it's binary.
Exactly. It's broken or it's not. It is an absolute, and, modern card games are built on that exact same comforting precision.
They really are. The digital engine either allows your move or it just flat out stops you.
Right. Like if you try to summon a monster that you literally can't afford, the game interface just flashes red at you. It holds your hand.
It protects you from yourself.
Yeah, but what if a game didn't stop you?
Mm-hmm.
What if it explicitly let you make an illegal move?
And the penalty for getting the math wrong wasn't just a warning buzzer.
Right, but an unrecoverable detonation of your entire board and the banishment of your hand.
It's wild to even think about.
What if a game allowed you to just, completely destroy yourself purely through your own hubris?
I mean, it completely shatters the modern philosophy of guardrails in game design. You aren't just playing against your opponent's cards at that point.
No, you're playing against yourself.
Exactly. You are playing against your own cognitive limits, your own ability to do arithmetic under immense psychological pressure.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is exactly what we are exploring in our deep dive today.
Yeah.
So welcome for those of you joining us.
Glad to be diving into this one.
We are looking at this fascinating path not taken in the history of card games. The stack of sources you brought in for us outlines a complete, highly robust, and frankly terrifying alternate reality mechanic for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, situated right in the pre-synchro era.
Right. And for those of you listening who might just be casual fans, the pre-synchro era was this crucial tipping point in the late 2000s.
It really was.
The game was about to shift from a slightly slower resource management style of play into the...
Yeah, Mere Ingredients used to rapidly summon a boss monster from the extra deck in a single turn. But the documents we are analyzing today propose a mechanic called succession summoning.
Succession summoning. It sounds so regal.
Right. And it is presented as an alternate timeline, a complex, highly punitive system that acts as if it was released instead of synchros.
So if I'm listening to this right now, I'm probably wondering what that actually looks like on the table. Because when I first read through your notes, my immediate reaction was, this sounds like the most stressful way to play a game ever invented.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly stressful by design.
The core philosophy of this mechanic, as the author puts it, is evolution over replacement.
Yes, evolution over replacement.
Because in standard Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially back in the tribute summoning days, you would play a small monster, and then on a later turn, you would sacrifice it.
Right, send it to the graveyard.
Exactly, to summon a bigger monster.
Yeah.
The little guy was just disposable.
It was fodder. But succession summoning insists on a continuous physical identity on the board. The text explicitly states the card's being changed, not replaced.
Change, not replace. So you aren't sending your starting monster to the graveyard.
No, you are evolving it in place.
It changes the entire emotional attachment you have to the cards in your deck.
It really does.
It feels like taking a single, fragile character in a role-playing game and nurturing them through this perilous skill tree rather than just drafting an entirely new army every single turn.
And the rules back up that RPG analogy with a very rigid numeral system. The cards belonging to this archetype actually have numerals printed right on them.
Like Roman numerals or standard numbers.
Standard numerals, usually 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the absolute unbreakable rule of this system is that you must start with a numeral 1.
Okay.
This stage 1 card must be normal summoned to the field.
Wait, hold on. So if I draw a numeral 3 in my opening hand, I can't just cheat it out with some other special summon spell.
No, you cannot.
I have to start at the bottom.
You have to start at the bottom. There is no shortcut. From that initial numeral 1, stages 2, 3, and 4 must be succession summoned.
Got it.
The text gives a very clear mechanical example, actually. If you have a Shaman Eye on the field, it can be succession summoned into a Shaman the Second straight from your hand.
So you are literally layering the evolution directly onto the physical card already in play. The Stage 2 card is placed physically on top of the Stage 1 card.
Exactly. Just like an XYZ summon in later eras, but way stricter.
Okay, as a player, my immediate thought here is consistency. Because if I need a Stage 1, then a Stage 2, then a Stage 3, all in my hand at exactly the right time.
That sounds like a recipe for bricking.
Yeah, what card players call bricking.
Yeah.
Just drawing a completely unplayable hand of Stage 4s and Stage 3s with no starter card in sight.
And the designer knew that. To control this, the rules place incredibly strict mathematical limits on your deck construction. The sources state that out of your entire deck, exactly 12 succession cards are allowed.
Just 12.
And exactly 9 reachers are allowed.
Okay, let's pause and define that jargon for a second for the listener, because the notes just casually dropped the term reachers. What on earth is a reacher in this context? Is it a monster type or like a spell?
So in the broader context of card game theory, a reacher, or sometimes called a searcher, is essentially a bridge card.
Okay.
It's a card whose primary function is to reach into your deck and pull out the exact piece you need to complete your sequence.
Ah, I see.
Given the strict 1, 2, 3, 4 evolution requirement, these 9 reacher cards are likely spell cards or utility effects that say something like, add 1 numeral 1 or numeral 2 monster from your deck to your hand.
So they are the connective tissue. If you don't draw your shaman the second, you play a reacher to go get it out of the deck.
Precisely.
But let's look at that ratio for a second. 12 succession cards and 9 reachers. That's 21 cards out of what is traditionally a 40-card deck in this game.
Yep, over half the deck.
You are dedicating over half of your available deck space to just maintaining this single evolutionary line. You aren't blindly drawing hoping to hit a crazy combo.
No, you are meticulously curating a specific hand state. It is surgical. You are building a highly controlled environment.
Right.
But here is the catch. And this is where the vulnerability of this entire mechanic really hits home. When you play your initial numeral 1 card, the rules state it must be summoned in face-up defense position. You do not have a choice.
That is so incredibly submissive.
It really is.
You are placing your tiny, fragile numeral 1 starter card on the board, and the game physically forces it to kneel. You are telegraphing to your opponent, hey, I am starting my sequence, I cannot attack you this turn, and here is my vulnerable little guy.
It goes against every instinct of an aggressive player, but the game provides a vital lifeline here. The rule explicitly states that this monster is granted total immunity during the turn it is summoned.
Total immunity.
Yes, it is completely unaffected by spell, trap, or effect cards, and crucially, this protection holds when it's a succession summoned in later turns as well.
So on turn 1, I play Shaman and defense position. It probably has terrible stats, right?
Almost certainly.
But it's completely immune to any tricks my opponent might have. They can't use a trap card to destroy it. They can't use a spell card to banish it.
Exactly. Which forces the opponent into a very specific, very narrow type of interaction.
Okay, what do they have to do?
If they want to get rid of your Shaman Eye on that first turn, they can't rely on their fancy removal effects. They have to run over it with raw combat stats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have to summon a monster with a higher attack value than your monster's defense value and physically punch it off the board.
Which creates an amazing psychological standoff right out of the gate. Because the opponent knows that if they don't break that physical defense immediately, that Shaman the first is going to become a Shaman the second on the next turn.
And the snowball is going to start rolling down the hill.
All right. But while an evolving, fully protected monster sitting in defense mode sounds cool in theory, sitting in defense position doesn't win games. It definitely does not. You can't reduce your opponent's life points to 0 if you can't attack. And this evolving vessel requires a power source to go on the offensive.
What's fascinating here is that this introduces the most bizarre resource management system I've seen in a long time. Because the spellcaster card itself, the Shaman we've been tracking, has a massive limitation built into its core design.
Let me guess. It has terrible attack stats.
It has 0 attack.
0. Literally 0.
Literally 0. It is an empty vessel. It's a conduit. To do absolutely anything offensive, you must equip gemstones to the caster.
Gemstones, okay.
This introduces a whole new layer of mathematical puzzle solving. The text lays out the crucial formula. 1 star equals 1, charge equals 1,000 ATK for the caster.
So 1 star on the gem card is 1 charge, which translates to 1,000 attack points.
Let's really break down the philosophical separation happening here because it's important. The caster is just the body, the gemstone is the weapon, and the rules take the separation to its absolute logical extreme.
How so?
The text specifies that the attack originates from the stone itself, not from the caster.
Wait, explain the mechanics of that. How does an equipment card declare an attack? That breaks the normal rules of the game.
Think about the physical representation on the table. You have the caster monster card, and you equip a gem card to it. When you declare an attack, the rules treat the gem as the entity outputting the 1,000 points of damage.
Okay.
Therefore, the rules explicitly state you cannot attack or target the caster with any form of spell, trap, or effect that responds to an attack.
That is a wild defensive paradox.
Yeah.
The caster is shielded by the very battery that powers it.
Exactly.
If my opponent has a trap card that says, destroy an attacking monster, they can't use it on my caster, because my caster isn't technically the one attacking. The gem is.
Precisely. It forces the opponent to rethink their entire strategy. They have to target the equipment card itself, which might have its own protections, or they have to rely on completely different mechanics, because the conduit itself remains untargetable in that specific combat interaction.
Okay, but I have to push back here because this sounds incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Let's look at the actual board state restrictions the author imposes. The rules enforce incredibly strict field conditions, right?
Very strict.
You cannot have more than one spellcaster on the field at a time, period.
Right. Just one.
If you have a shaman on the field, you cannot summon another one. And furthermore, the card must remain a spellcaster type. If its typing is altered by any card effect in the game, you cannot cast.
That is the single point of failure I was waiting for us to get to.
It's terrifying. You're telling me I'm putting all my eggs in one highly vulnerable, incredibly slow-moving basket?
Yep.
If you look at standard Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, or really any card game, the strategy is usually to spread your risk. You build a wide board. If one piece is destroyed, the others carry on. But this succession mechanic demands total centralization.
It demands absolute focus on a single piece on the board.
Let's walk through a mental scenario for the listeners so they can really feel the stress of this.
Let's do it.
I am playing this deck against you. I play my vulnerable numeral 1 caster. I am forced to put it in defense position. I pass my turn, and I am just sweating bullets, praying you don't summon a monster with 1,800 attack to just run over my poor shaman's 1,000 defense points.
A very real possibility.
Right. But somehow, I survive. My turn comes back. I succession summon it to numeral 2. I finally attach a gemstone to give it life. I use 2 charges. My caster now has 2,000 attack. I can finally breathe, right? My engine is online.
You can breathe, but shallowly, because that single point of failure remains active at all times. Let's talk about the typing restriction you just mentioned.
Okay.
The rules state that if its typing is altered, it cannot cast. There are very common cards in this era of the game like Zombie World or DNA Surgery, whose entire purpose is to change the monster types of every card on the field.
Oh, wow. So if you flip a trap card that turns all monsters on the field into zombie types?
Your entire engine shuts down instantly. The text is incredibly clear. It must remain a spellcaster in order for it to be a caster.
It makes thematic sense, but mechanically it's brutal.
The moment it becomes a zombie, it loses its connection to the gems. It literally can't cast. The gems go dead. The attack drops back to 0. It's brilliant counterplay design, really. It forces you to protect not just the card's life points, but its very identity on the board.
The identity politics of a card game. I love it. But let's follow the natural instinct of a player who actually manages to protect their caster. Because the gems provide direct mathematical power, 1 charge equals 1,000 ATK. The immediate lizard brain instinct of literally any player is to just attach as many crystals as possible.
Naturally, just stack them up.
Right, stack them to the ceiling, put 10 charges on it, and swing for 10,000 attack and end the game right there.
But the universe of this alternate game design violently restricts how much raw power one vessel can hold. It introduces strict capacity limits.
Which brings us to the tiers of power. And the math here is fascinating, but also slightly infuriating in a really compelling way.
The math is very deliberate.
The text outlines 4 specific evolutionary tiers for the casters, dictated by their level. And the level dictates 2 things: how many charges the caster can hold, and its maximum attack threshold.
Right. Let's break these down, because the scaling is not perfectly linear.
No, it's not. First, caster level 4. The maximum charges it can hold is 2, and its max attack is 2,000. That is clean math.
Very clean. 1 charge is 1,000 attack, 2 charges is 2,000. Makes perfect sense.
Exactly. Then we move up to caster level 6. It can hold a maximum of 3 charges, but its max attack is 2,600.
Wait, let's pause right there.
Yeah, the math breaks. 3 charges at 1,000 attack each should equal 3,000 attack. But the level 6 maxes out at 2,600. It's mathematically nerfed.
It bleeds off 400 points.
Right. Then we look at caster level 8. It also holds a maximum of 3 charges, but its max attack is the full 3,000.
So it gets the full value.
And finally, the Holy Grail, caster level 9 and up. Unlimited use.
Yeah.
And a massive 5,000 ATK limit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to talk about that middle tier discrepancy.
Yeah, please. Both level 6 and level 8 can hold exactly 3 charges, yet their attack limits are 2,600 versus 3,000. Why impose a 400-point penalty on the level 6 caster? Why bleed off that energy?
You have to look at the game's broader ecosystem here. That 400-point penalty isn't an accident. It's a deliberate governor on the engine.
How so?
In the pre-Synchro era we are discussing, a 3,000 attack monster was a massive, game-defining threshold. Cards like the iconic Blue Eyes White Dragon sat right at 3,000.
Right, that was the gold standard for a boss monster.
Exactly. If a level 6 caster could easily hit 3,000 attack just by slapping 3 gems on it, there would be very little incentive for the player to take the risk of continuing the succession chain up to level 8.
Right. If I'm already at 3,000 attack, why would I risk my fragile board state to try and evolve again? I'll just stay at level 6 and beat you down.
Exactly. By capping the level 6 at 2,600, the designer prevents mid-tier monsters from easily sweeping the board and stalling the game's progression.
It's a balanced choice.
It gives the level 6 utility. I mean, 2,600 is strong, it can kill most standard monsters, but it isn't a true boss monster. It forces the player to keep evolving, to keep reaching for level 8 to unlock the full potential of those 3 charges.
It perfectly emphasizes the vessel nature of the casters, too. The gems could technically produce 3,000 horsepower, but the physical chassis of a level 6 caster would just rattle apart. It physically cannot contain that much arcane energy, so 400 points just bleeds off into the ether.
And that restriction makes the psychological lure of that final tier so much more potent.
Oh, totally. The level 9 plus, unlimited use, 5,000 ATK tier.
That acts as the ultimate boss monster for this archetype. It rewards the player who successfully navigated the incredibly fragile lower stages,
Surviving the defense position vulnerability.
surviving the zombie world threats.
Right, and managing their resources flawlessly. Once you hit level 9, the training wheels come off, the physical vessel is finally strong enough to handle unlimited power.
And 5,000 attack is practically a one-hit kill in a game where you start with 8,000 life points.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate payoff.
It really is. But here's where the strategy pivots, because pumping up the caster's attack is only half the deck's potential. If you are just using your crystal charges to swing for damage, you are playing a very one-dimensional game.
Right, you are basically just playing a giant beat stick.
Exactly. The true utility of the gemstone charges the really complex part of this strategy that makes it a true alternate timeline mechanic is using that energy to bring out reinforcements, which introduces an entirely different, highly restricted mathematical puzzle.
This is where the strategy shifts from a single Voltron-style juggernaut into more of a tactical command center. Charges can be used to channel energy to summon ritual monsters directly from the player's hand.
Okay, let's do a quick refresher for anyone listening who might not be deep into the weeds of card mechanics. In traditional Yu-Gi-Oh!, ritual summoning usually requires a specific spell card, right?
Correct.
And you have to tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal the monster you want to summon. It's very costly. So how does succession summoning alter this?
In this system, you bypass the traditional ritual spell entirely.
Wow, really?
Yeah, the crystal charges act as your fuel. You channel the energy from the gems attached to your caster to literally materialize these ritual monsters.
But again, this game doesn't just let you do whatever you want. There is an absolute, unbreakable rule governing this swarm tactic.
And it is a strict one.
The rules say nothing can be summoned above the caster's level. The caster's current level acts as a hard ceiling for the ritual monster's level.
And the text provides a very specific example to illustrate how this math works in practice. Let's say you have a level 4 caster on the field.
Okay, level 4.
And you have managed to attach 6 charges to it via your gems. The rules state that you can use those 6 charges to ritual summon 2 level 3 monsters from your hand, because 3 plus 3 equals 6.
Right, that makes sense. Here's where it gets really interesting, though, and where the math starts to trick you.
It sets a trap for the player.
Exactly, because you have 6 charges. You might look at your hand, see a massive level 6 ritual monster, and think, oh, great, I have 6 charges of energy. I will just summon my level 6 boss monster.
But you can't.
Because your caster is only level 4. Even though you have the raw energy, the 6 charges, you cannot push a level 6 monster through a level 4 caster.
Right, the system rejects it.
Let me use an analogy here for the listeners because I had to read this rule 3 times before it clicked for me. Think of the caster's level as the physical size of a doorway in a stone wall.
Okay, I like this.
And the crystal charges are the amount of pushing power you have. You might have enough energy, enough charges, to push a massive elephant through that wall. But the doorway is only built for humans.
Right.
You can use your energy to push multiple humans through that door rapidly, like the 2 level 3 monsters in your example. But if you try to push the elephant through, it won't fit. The doorway is physically too small.
That is a perfect visualization. The energy of the gems doesn't change the size of the conduit.
It's fixed.
And this limitation forces a very specific style of play early in the game. A low-level caster acts as a field commander, dispensing multiple low-level ritual minions to flood the board, provided they have enough crystal charges.
So you aren't summoning huge backup monsters in the early turns. You are summoning small utility minions.
Exactly, which is incredibly important because players using the Succession deck are operating under a massive, frankly shocking handicap.
Oh, this is the part that blew my mind.
The rules explicitly state that a player utilizing this mechanic cannot normal summon or special summon standard monsters at all.
Let that sink in for a second. Your standard monster zones are essentially dead space, unless you fill them via this specific ritual process.
My normal summon is just gone. That is a fundamental pillar of the game.
It is a complete paradigm shift. You forfeit the most basic mechanics of the game in exchange for this hyper-specific, crystal-powered ritual engine.
If your caster is destroyed, or if you run out of gems, or if your opponent flips Zombie World, you are completely locked out of playing monsters. You are paralyzed.
You have essentially volunteered to play the game with one hand tied behind your back, relying entirely on this one specific conduit to function.
You are paralyzed, vulnerable, and completely dependent on doing the math correctly every single time you breathe.
Which brings us to the punishments. Because what happens if a player miscalculates? What if they get greedy?
Humans are naturally greedy in these games.
What if they forget the doorway analogy and in the heat of a tournament match try to push that level 6 elephant through the level 4 door? Or what if they misremember the attack limits and try to pump too much energy into a weak caster?
This is the part of the deep dive that legitimately had my jaw on the floor.
The sources outline a punishment system that is so severe, it fundamentally changes the entire psychological landscape of sitting across the table from another human being.
This is undoubtedly the most unique and controversial aspect of this entire rule set. It introduces a concept of catastrophic failure that almost every modern card game has completely abandoned in favor of user-friendly interfaces.
Let's look at the two specific infractions the text outlines.
Yeah.
Okay, infraction number 1, ritual punishment.
Ritual penance.
This happens if a monster is ritual summoned and its level is greater than the caster. Like our previous example, you have a level 4 caster, you have 5 charges, and in the heat of the moment, you declare an attempt to cast a level 5 ritual summon.
You've declared the action.
The text says the spellcaster and the gemstone are immediately destroyed. But it doesn't stop there.
No, it escalates dramatically. But before we get to the ultimate penalty, let's look at infraction number 2. Casting or attack punishment.
Right.
This happens if a caster overcharges an attack beyond its physical limit. For example, you put 3 charges on a level 4 caster, hoping to swing for 3,000 ATK.
But as we established earlier, a level 4 caster's absolute limit is 2,000.
Exactly. You put too much power into a small vessel, and the text explicitly says the spell will backfire.
And the penalty for both of these infractions, the overleveled ritual summon or the overcharged attack, results in the exact same mind-bendingly brutal punishment.
It's rough.
I want you to imagine playing in a high-stakes local tournament for a second. You declare an attack. Your opponent looks at the math, calls a judge over, and the judge reads this rule. The text states, you lose exactly 50% of your current life points.
Ouch.
Your entire side of the field is cleared,
Ouch again.
and your entire hand is banished.
I have to read that again to make sure we are all comprehending the severity of this. You lose half your life. Every card on your side of the field, your caster, your gems, your spells, your trap, is destroyed.
Gone.
And the cards you're physically holding isn't just discarded to the graveyard where you might be able to revive them later. They are banished, removed from the game entirely.
You're right to emphasize the banishment aspect, because in this game, the graveyard is often just a second hand.
Yeah.
Players use the graveyard all the time for combos.
But banished. That is permanent exile.
Let's dissect this from a game design perspective, because this raises a fascinating debate about modern gaming. In almost every popular digital card game today, think Master Duel, Hearthstone, Magic Arena, the game simply prevents you from making an illegal move.
It won't let you do it.
If you try to summon a level 5 monster with a level 4 caster in Master Duel, the engine just beeps at you. The interface won't let you select the card. It just says, no, you can't do that. The game engine protects you from your own stupidity.
Right. The worst that happens in a digital game is you look a little silly to your opponent because they see your cursor hovering over a card you can't play, and then you just choose a different legal action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this system explicitly allows you to make the mistake. It lets you declare the attack. It lets you announce the summon.
It gives you the rope to hang yourself.
Yes, and then once you commit to the action, verbally or physically, it acts in nuclear penalty. It relies entirely on the player's own internal cognitive load to enforce the rules. You aren't playing against the game's engine, you're playing against your own ability to do arithmetic under stress.
Which is terrifying because it is an unrecoverable state. If you banish your hand and clear your field, you are staring at an empty board with 0 cards in hand.
And in a game where your entire strategy revolves around maintaining a single, slowly evolving caster and a heavily curated hand of exactly 12 succession cards and 9 reachers, if you lose your hand, you have lost the game. Period.
There's no coming back from that.
Your opponent doesn't even need to attack you. You might as well just offer a handshake and pack up your cards. It demands absolute, flawless mathematical perfection. There's 0 margin for error.
Think about the intense tension this creates across the physical table. It completely changes the dynamic between the two players. Your opponent isn't just trying to outplay your cards. They are sitting there, quietly watching you do math.
Just waiting.
They are watching you attach charges, silently hoping your ambition or your stress exceeds your caster's limits. They are waiting for you to self-destruct.
It's pure psychological warfare. Imagine the sweat on your brow.
Yeah.
You're looking at your level 6 caster, you've got 3 gems equipped, and you're thinking, wait, is the limit 2,600 or 3,000?
Yeah. I would second-guess myself instantly.
If I declare an attack for 3,000 and the limit is actually 2,600, I lose half my life, my entire board, and my hand. You would literally have grown adults triple-checking basic first-grade edition on a notepad before declaring an attack.
It slows the game down, but not in a boring, stall-out way. It slows it down with sheer terror.
It introduces genuine, devastating consequence to the simple act of playing a card. And it requires immense integrity and game knowledge from both players to enforce it correctly.
Because if you declare the overcharged attack, your opponent has to know the limits well enough to call you on it and trigger the punishment.
If they don't catch it, you get away with an illegal, overpowered attack.
It creates a highly engaged, highly scrutinized board state where both players are constantly checking each other's arithmetic.
Let's talk about the 50% life point hit for a second, too. Because the text specifies 50% of your current life points.
Yes, that distinction is crucial.
Which means it can never technically kill you on its own.
Right?
If you have 8,000 life points, you lose 4,000. If you're down to 100 life points, you only lose 50.
I'm trying to think if there is ever a tactical advantage to failing on purpose. Like, oh, I'll just intentionally overcharge my attack to trigger a board wipe if my opponent has a monster I can't get past.
But you still banish your entire hand and wipe your own field. You aren't wiping your opponent's field, only your own.
Oh, right. The text says your entire side of the field is cleared.
Yeah.
So you nuke yourself, banish your hand, have your life, and your opponent just sits there with their full army intact, ready to hit you on the next turn.
Exactly. There is 0 tactical advantage to failing. It is a pure, unmitigated punishment. Which brings up a massive, glaring question. If you were listening to this right now, you were probably screaming at whatever device you were holding. Why on earth would anyone ever put a deck together that punishes them this badly?
It does seem masochistic.
Given that one wrong move literally obliterates your hand, field, and half your life points, we have to look at the broader metagame. Why take this incredible risk? What is the actual payoff? How do the overarching strengths of this playstyle justify these agonizing, game-ending weaknesses?
To understand the appeal and why a player would subject themselves to this kind of stress, we have to synthesize everything we've discussed into a holistic view of the deck's performance. Let's quickly summarize the weaknesses first, because they are substantial.
They really are.
As we noted, casters have 0 innate attack. They require incredibly strict type maintenance. They must remain spellcasters at all times, making them vulnerable to common disruption cards.
Utilizing this engine entirely disables standard, normal, and special summoning for the user.
The powerful cards, the reachers, and the higher succession stages are heavily limited in the deck construction.
And, of course, the ever-present threat of nuking your own board if you fail that first-grade math test.
Those are massive hurdles. You are fighting the game's mechanics and your own brain as much as you are fighting your opponent.
So where's the payoff? Why are we doing this?
The strengths are nuanced, but incredibly potent in the right hands. The text notes that succession summoning happens without tributes.
Ah, okay. Let's unpack that.
In the pre-synchro era, getting a level 8 monster on the field usually required sacrificing 2 other monsters. You had to give up massive board presence.
That's a huge cost.
But with succession summoning, you aren't sacrificing anything to climb the ladder. You are just evolving the card in place. You are maintaining your single, heavily invested asset without throwing away resources to the graveyard. That is highly efficient resource management, assuming you can keep it alive.
And there's a fascinating note in the sources about the ritual monsters once they actually hit the field. The text says that once ritual cards are summoned via the crystal charges, they follow normal rules for tributes.
So while the caster itself cannot be tributed, it's your engine, your conduit, your permanent fixture, the minions it summons can be.
This opens up entirely new playlines. You can use those tiny level 3 ritual monsters you squeeze through the doorway as fodder for other powerful non-standard effects, or as tributes for powerful spell and trap cards.
Furthermore, the text mentions a defensive synergy. It states that succession cards can gain protection from ritual cards with an overlay.
What do they mean in practical terms? Overlay protection.
So your caster starts incredibly vulnerable, forced into that submissive defense position on turn 1. But as you progress and you use your charges to summon those ritual minions, those minions don't just sit there. They can physically overlay and protect the fragile caster from destruction.
Oh, wow.
It creates this beautiful symbiotic loop. The caster powers the summoning of the minions, and the minions, in turn, form a defensive perimeter to protect the caster.
It's a self-sustaining ecosystem,
Yeah.
provided you can get it up and running without blowing yourself up.
Exactly.
But here's the most fascinating part of these source documents for me, from a purely historical or sociological perspective. The author of these rules includes a specific section aggressively defending the mechanic.
It reads very defensively.
The text explicitly states, in almost a defensive tone, that this playstyle is not a floodgate cheat or a workaround.
We should definitely define that term for clarity because it's central to understanding the author's mindset. In card games, a floodgate strategy is one that prevents the opponent from playing the game.
It creates a literal barrier, a floodgate, that stops them from summoning, attacking, or using their card effects.
Things like Mystic Mine or Skill Drain in Yu-Gi-Oh!, where you flip a card and the rules suddenly say, neither player can activate monster effects.
Right. It's often viewed by the community as a very passive and, frankly, frustrating way to win because it turns a dynamic game into a non-interactive stall-out. It's often called anti-Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, nobody likes sitting across the table from that. You can't play your cards, therefore I win.
And the author is vehemently insisting that succession summoning is not that. They describe it instead as a masterclass that exceeds expectations. They emphasize that using these decks is fundamentally harder than it looks due to the strict requirement for critical thinking and the total lack of card loop cycling.
By defending it against the term floodgating, the author is clarifying a crucial distinction. Succession summoning doesn't stop the opponent from playing their game.
Your opponent can still normal summon, they can still special summon, they can play their spells and traps, and they can execute their standard combos. You haven't locked them out of the game engine.
Rather, you have set up a unique, fragile, but highly resilient puzzle on your side of the board for both of you to navigate. You are playing a different game alongside them and daring them to break your concentration.
And I think that's why the author mentions the lack of card loop cycling. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is notorious for 10-minute turns, where a player draws, discards, searches, summons, and repeats in this endless, dizzying loop to build an unbreakable board.
Succession summoning is the antithesis of that. This is slow, it is deliberate, it is hyper-calculated.
You are playing one evolution a turn. You are equipping a gem. You are making one or two highly restricted ritual summons. You are passing the turn.
It demands respect, honestly. It is a system that punishes laziness, it punishes greed, and it rewards absolute mechanical discipline. You can't just memorize a 20-step combo from a YouTube video and execute it blindly.
You have to adapt to the board state turn by turn, managing your limited gem charges and ensuring you never ever exceed your caster's physical limits.
It is, as the text claims, a masterclass in execution.
So what does this all mean? It's so fascinating to reflect on why the author felt the need to vigorously defend the mechanic in the actual rules document itself, to literally write no cheats in the design notes.
It implies a very specific metagame environment.
Or at least an anticipated community reaction, where players are so easily frustrated by things they don't immediately understand that they assume any alternative mechanic that beats them must be a cheap trick.
The author is preemptively saying, no, I didn't cheat. I didn't lock you out with a floodgate.
I just did the math better than you, I managed my single point of failure flawlessly, I didn't get greedy, and I earned this 5,000 attack boss monster the absolute hard way.
And that hard way involves risking everything on every single activation. It is a bold, uncompromising vision of game design.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together because we have gone on an incredible journey today through what feels like a parallel universe of game design. We started with the careful, fragile evolution of the defenseless spellcasters, forced into submissive defense position, but protected by that vital turn 1 immunity.
We broke down the intricate mathematical precision of the gem charges, where crystals act as the true weapons while the casters serve only as the conduits, creating that bizarre combat paradox where you can't target the caster for an attack.
We navigated the terrifying doorway of ritual summoning, strictly gated by the caster's level, forcing players to build wide, low-level boards before they can even think about summoning their boss monsters.
And of course, we shuddered at the apocalyptic punishments for overreaching the 50% life point drain, the complete field wipe, and the devastating permanent banishment of your entire hand just for failing a basic math equation.
It is a cohesive, brilliant, and utterly brutal vision of what a card game could be. It represents a timeline where complexity was gated not by how fast you could play cards, but by how accurately you could manage risk.
And as we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final lingering idea to mull over. We spent this entire time analyzing how this specific alternate mechanic punishes failure in a card game.
Right.
But consider this. How different would all competitive games be, video games, sports, board games, if instead of rewarding endless, repetitive, safe loops, they actively allowed you to attempt impossible feats?
But instantly stripped you of everything you had built if you failed the math.
Exactly. Does the omnipresent safety net in modern game design the digital interface that prevents illegal moves, the guardrails that keep you from making catastrophic errors? Does that safety actually breed boring, predictable gameplay?
Does true thrill, true competitive tension only exist when you are allowed the absolute freedom to completely and utterly destroy yourself through your own unchecked ambition? That is a terrifying and brilliant question. A game where the X-ray machine doesn't just show you the break but physically shatters the bone if you misread the chart. It makes you wonder how many incredible games we are missing out on simply because designers are too afraid to let us fail spectacularly.
It really does make you wonder.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this custom deep dive into the murky, punitive, and utterly fascinating waters of succession summoning. Keep questioning the rules, keep checking your math, and whatever you do, don't push the elephant through the doorway. We'll see you next time.